Welcome to the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast, where it's all about you, Mama. I am your host, Sheilah. I am here to help the busy, overwhelmed mom reclaim her sanity, balance motherhood, her self care, and to unapologetically grow. I am so happy you are here and hope you plan to stay a while. Kick your feet up, sit back, relax, so we can focus on you. Let's go, cool mama. Hey, cool mamas. This is Sheila, and you are listening to episode 61 of the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast. Hello, ladies. Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you are well and feeling good from the inside out today. This week is Birth Trauma Awareness Week, and I wanted to make sure I acknowledged and show support and love for all the mamas in the KYCM community and beyond that have experienced any kind of birthing trauma. According to medicalnewstoday.com, birth trauma is an umbrella term referring to any physical or emotional distress experienced during or after childbirth. It can range from mild to severe and affect both the birthing parent and infant. According to the American Psychiatric Association, birth-related PTSD affects around 17% of postpartum parents. The trauma can be worsened due to lack of care and poor communication from healthcare professionals looking after mom and baby. In honor of Birth Trauma Awareness Week, I wanted to have an expert on the podcast that could help educate us on common mistakes that happen during labor and delivery and how it can be avoided. My hope is that this episode will help educate, encourage, and empower any expecting moms. And even if you are not expecting a baby, this information is just good to have for anyone you may know that is expecting a baby, or if you plan to have a baby in the future. My special guest today is childbirth attorney Gina Mundy. Gina is an attorney specializing in childbirth cases. For over 20 years, her focus has been investigating and analyzing mistakes that arise during labor and delivery. She has spent countless hours meticulously scrutinizing childbirth cases, conducting interviews with delivery teams, and thoroughly examining medical records to gain an in-depth understanding of every decision made during labor and delivery. Throughout her career, Gina has traveled nationwide engaging with healthcare professionals such as doctors, nurses, and midwives to explore all aspects of labor and delivery. These interactions have provided her with invaluable insights, enabling her to appreciate the diverse perspectives prevalent in different regions of the country. In June 2023, Gina's book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth, was published. The book helps parents to avoid the common mistakes during childbirth and have a healthy baby. This conversation with Gina was such a good one. I'm excited for you to tune in and learn more about Gina, her amazing book, and the invaluable wisdom that she shared. This episode is a longer one, but I promise you it is worth the listen in its entirety. Please share this episode with another mom or anyone you know that could benefit from hearing this valuable information. As Gina reminds us in her book, knowledge is power. The link to Gina's book and all her social media handles are available in the show notes to today's episode. Without any further ado, here is my conversation with Gina Mundy. I'm so honored to introduce my special guest, Gina Mundy. Gina is a childbirth attorney, speaker, podcaster, wife, a mother of three, and a best-selling author of her book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth. Welcome to the podcast, Gina.
Thank you, Sheilah. I am super excited to be here, and I loved our pre-show talk. We definitely have a good synergy, so I think it's going to be a great episode.
Awesome. Same to you. I'm just really excited to get to know more about you and talk about your book today, which I have started and it's amazing. Um,
Aw, thank
and,
you.
and yeah, of course, in my opinion, your book is it's a necessity. It's needed for expecting moms, and also a must read for expecting dads, expecting grandparents, expecting aunts, uncles. Like everybody needs this information that you're sharing in your book. There's definitely no book out there like it. So,
Thank
um,
you, and I agree.
yes.
Well, I wrote it, I just wrote it to help families have a healthy baby. But
Yeah.
listen, mom, I love that what you just said because, mom is physically and mentally focusing on delivering baby. So she really needs her tribe behind her to, be there protecting her and baby and just, in the end, avoiding meeting anybody ever like me who does what I do. Because if,
Yes.
I'll tell you the hardest part of my job is meeting the families after in the aftermath, of something going wrong. So I love that you're
Mhm.
including, everybody because that's the thing is there's so many, it's like, oh, my sister went into labor. We all headed to the hospital. And
Yeah.
then we just kind of sat there. Now, my book will give families, the power to, make sure again, protect mom, protect baby, and and
Mhm.
have it. And in the end of the day, have a healthy baby.
Yes, for sure. It's so needed. And your perspective, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but the perspective that you have based on your experience and personal things that happen that, gave you the extra care that you that was activated in you once you went through that particular instance with your family. But we'll definitely get into that a little bit more. But before we get started, I always start my episodes with a cool mama check-in. And I just talk about how I'm feeling for the day. Just a way to encourage moms to pause and check in with themselves mentally, emotionally, and physically because we matter. And I think a lot of the times we forget that we matter because we're so busy taking care of everyone else, which is a good thing, but we should include ourselves in the care. So I wanted to do as the cool mama check in. I will start. And since you are also a mom, I would love if you could share a little bit about how you're feeling today once I give my cool mama check in. You up to it?
Sure. So are you
Awesome.
gonna check in first?
Yes, I'll check in
Yes.
first.
I love that. Good. Then I can follow your lead.
Yes, I'll check in first. Um, Today is hectic. This week is hectic. I will say the first 2 days of the week, I started off with terrible allergies, terrible allergies, to the point where I was sneezing every 5 minutes. I was
Ooh.
concerned because I'm like, I have an interview to do in the next few days, and this medicine is not kicking in. And the last thing my guests would want is to hear me sneezing every 5 seconds. So that was going on with me earlier. But today was just one of those hectic mornings where I had to get my kids off to my oldest son. He's 17, had to get him off
Mm.
to his internship and my youngest son, he has the summer academy that he's going to, had to get him there. And of course, the mornings when you have a lot to do for yourself is when the children have a lot of things that they want to ask you about. And then the husband has things that he wants to ask you about. And then you're like, can you do that yourself? Feel like you may be able to do it yourself, but, I did what I could. Everybody got off to where they needed to go for the day, and, I need a clone. I need a clone. I think that that will be the answer for me at
Yeah.
this point? So, that's what's going on with me this week today. How are you today?
Oh, a little bit hectic, just to use your same word, because I'm like, "Oh, that describes me too." So, yes. No, you know what? I decided, so I've been extremely busy. My book was published a year ago, and so this past year has been crazy.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to work less this summer. So I just took a
Mm.
week off. It
I
was 4th of
love
July.
that.
So I took that week off.
Awesome.
I'd worked the previous week, but then I had taken the previous week off. So what,
Mhm.
3 weeks ago I had taken off. And when I took that week off, I just took my 10-year-old camping. And so we camped for the
Oh,
week. And so there's no internet or, anything like that, which was amazing, right?
yes.
Okay. So you have this, I'm just very busy. And so for me just to like take a couple of weeks off, now I'm back trying to work and I might be just, it's
Mm.
so hectic and right. And the kids are home. So everybody's hungry.
Yes.
Yeah, my husband has a lot of requests too. So I have 3 kids, but with him, I'll be like, well, I have 4 kids
Mhm.
because, again, they're always asking and whatnot. But,
Yeah.
it was so, and then I was saying earlier today, so I'm in Michigan and we just have a lot of storms today and I keep losing
Yeah.
power, which initially was like, oh my goodness, I have way too much to do. But in the other instance, it was nice to sit there,
Mm. Oh,
silence in the dark, in the dark and be like, maybe I don't want the power to come back on. But it keeps coming back on, which is a sign that it's still time to go. But yeah,
yeah.
so it's just crazy. You take the time off, but then what you have to do when you get back is like, oh my goodness, every aspect,
Yeah.
laundry, clean the camper, house is a disaster. Yeah, and then I have all these other parts of my life, my cases, my book, my podcast, and then,
Yes.
my producer's like, "We have to release your episode tomorrow. You have to send me the description." And I'm like, he's been every day. And I'm like, "I'm trying. I'm just trying."
I know.
And then I'm like, "What was the episode about?" It was like weeks ago. I'm like, "Oh,
And I'm laughing because I understand.
oh yeah, because you have a podcast, so you know what it's I know.
Completely
Moving
understand.
Moving forward, every description will be done right after the show. But anyway, that's another thing. But yeah, so one hectic mom to another. Yeah, we have a very mutual check-in today.
Yes, for sure. And silence is my favorite thing. It is my favorite thing. And it's because, as a mom, it's like you don't get enough of it. So when you get a
Oh,
whiff of silence, it's golden.
oh
So
yeah.
I totally understand. Like, okay, the lights went off, but I'm kind of enjoying this moment right now. And I get a little bit more of that. But yeah, I totally understand. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability, and we can all relate for sure.
Oh, thanks, Sheila. And same to you too.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the episode. Excited to get to talk to Gina a little bit more today. So this episode will be released on Birth Trauma Awareness Week. And I think that you're the perfect person to bring awareness to what can go wrong during labor and delivery. But most importantly, you can help moms become aware of what can be done to avoid mistakes based on your years of experience and knowledge. Um, Gina, your book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth, gives expecting moms the knowledge and the confidence to advocate for herself and the baby.
Mhm.
I told you already, I'm really enjoying your book. I just want to call it a breath of fresh air for expecting moms. I wish I had it when I had and I'll share my personal story a little later, but when I had my first son, a lot of the things that you mentioned in the book, I resonated with.
Oh,
So that made me even more grateful that he is here, understanding what could have gone wrong. So,
it's scary.
yeah, very much so. And before I get into, getting more to know you more, I would just like to read a short passage from chapter 1 of your book that I really believe expresses the importance of awareness beautifully to help people understand why, first of all, getting your book is essential, but also awareness and not going through the process as if it's just something that I'll get through because I'm me, but
Mhm.
that, it's important that I'm aware of what could go wrong if something goes wrong and I need to be prepared. So let me go ahead and read this short passage. And this is from chapter 1 of Gina's book. As you prepare to welcome your little one into the world, some stories in this book may be difficult to digest, but remember, knowledge is power. Within these pages lies the power to comprehend how something as miraculous as childbirth can also profoundly impact your life. The power to know that it is not good enough to just roll up to the hospital in labor and hope for the best, because that is how each of these stories starts. The power to realize that armed with this knowledge, you can now prepare yourself in ways that families could not in the past. You now have the power to learn from the experiences of other families. This knowledge is the key to navigating your childbirth with clarity. It is the power that will allow you to approach this pivotal moment in your life with both humility and strength and emerge from it with a deeper understanding of the incredible power of knowledge. That passage is powerful
Wow.
in itself. And I just want to first, before we get into everything, just thank you for taking the time and the energy to share your wisdom and your knowledge. I can only imagine how many lives this book has already saved since it's been released. So thank you.
Sheila, you're sending like chills down like all over my body.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of
Like, thank you
course.
for reading that to me. I don't know why that just made me very emotional right now, just hearing it from somebody else. But I did. I spent I spent thousands of hours writing that book, and I remember writing that passage in particular because that's the beginning, and that's like parents. You have to again. You
Mhm.
have to understand what you're going into because it is such a pivotal moment in your life. So, for your kind words and even and that's why I wrote the book is to, again, make sure that, other families don't and have to endure, what
Mhm.
the families I have met have.
Yeah,
So thank you for your
yeah.
kind words. I'm,
Of
so
course.
I'm gonna have to gather myself here for a second. So thank you.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's just I haven't finished the book in its entirety. I've finished chapter 1 and going to chapter 2, and chapter 2 is amazing too, and have skimmed the pages because 'cause I'm a skimmer. I'll go through and skim just to see what it's about, and
Same.
I'm just amazed, and that passage in itself, it just lets you know everything you needed to know as to why this information is important, and I think if there was a passage like that in every pregnancy book, then people would not put it down and get everything they could out of it until they learned the information. So, yeah, it brought me to tears too reading it. So, I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, of course. And you're not only a mom, you're a childbirth lawyer, like we talked about, and you have a personal experience that has helped you to relate to the moms and their families that you've worked with. What my first question is, can you share with us what led you to becoming a childbirth lawyer, what your role entails, and then lastly, what motivated you to write the book?
Oh, of course. In terms of becoming a childbirth attorney, I wish I had a better story. I stumbled on it after law school, and I was hired into a team of over 20 people. And basically, all we did were these birth trauma cases. And just so your audience understands, these are cases involving, the birth of a baby when something goes wrong. Baby's not born healthy, like permanently not healthy,
Mhm.
and some babies pass away. A lot of my cases recently, the babies are passed. And that's really hard on the parents, obviously, because, one of the things the moms always tell me is like their heart does not understand that baby is not here. And then another part of the cases is some moms pass away. So I
Mhm.
come in as the attorney and I find out what happened, what went wrong, why, and more importantly, what should have been done so baby was born healthy or mom around to raise her baby. And those questions have taken me across the United States many times, meeting with different people on delivery teams, families, whoever, just basically hashing out every aspect of labor and delivery.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that for about 21 years now. 19 years deep into the profession is
Wow.
when I had the personal experience that, you've talked about a little bit.
Mhm.
But basically, my niece was pregnant, and she was pregnant with the first baby of our next generation. So this is my sister, who's like one of my best friends. So her daughter's like my daughter.
Yeah.
But she had a very scary childbirth experience, and I was 1,100 miles from her when she went into labor.
Oh,
Well, I don't
wow.
know, she actually did go, but we can get into that in a second. But
Yeah.
so I was 1,100 miles from Sam when all of this happened, and, so basically, just to speed up the story, I had gotten a call from my sister, and I had been in contact with them for 24 hours pretty regularly, just trying to, "Okay, what's going on?" I felt like, though I was 1,100 miles away, so it was a little late in the game
Mhm.
to try to, like, tell them what to do or what they need to know, and, again, it's over the phone. They're sending me pictures. I just was like, oh my goodness. And then I got the call from my sister. It was March 17th.
Mhm.
It was around 5 p.m. It was one of those moments you'll never forget where you are. I was in the kitchen surrounded by my kids. And I answered the phone expecting the good news that Sam had her baby. And it was my sister hysterically screaming the baby crashed.
Mm.
And I'm like, great. I mean, and her labor really had played out very similar to how a baby case plays out. And it's, another reason I wrote the book is because there are reoccurring issues, there are reoccurring mistakes. And she'd already just kind of followed it. So when I hear the baby crash, that's what you hear in the cases.
Yeah.
And so I ran outside because I had been, my kids are right there, and I didn't want, she's screaming. I start crying. And then I just sat there listening to her cry, and obviously I was doing my legal analysis, and then I stopped and I did the human analysis, and I'm like, this is
Mhm.
how the families feel.
Mm.
Because when I talk to them, they always describe this transitional period, this life
Mm.
before baby and life after baby,
Oh, wow.
or life before my mom was there and life after, mom passed. And it's just this
Mhm.
always this moment that I've had to hear about for 19 years. And it was definitely the first time that I'm like, this is how they feel. And it was just paralyzing. All you can do, and this is in the book, is hope, pray, because you can't change the past.
Yeah.
So, about 20 minutes later, we did get news the baby was gonna be okay. We got really lucky. I call those the close calls. We landed on the right side of a close calls. As a childbirth attorney, I have listened to many families and, that have landed on the right side of a close call.
Oh, yeah.
It's more personal because obviously, with what I do, I have a lot of people tell me their birth stories, which
Yeah.
I love to hear, good, bad, indifferent. So, but yeah, it was a close call.
Oof.
But that day, it took me out of the grind. You're just head down,
Mm.
litigating cases or whatever. And it just kind of stopped me in my tracks. And my girls, next week, my one turns 16 and then my other one's 20. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, my little man's 10. So my kids are getting older, and I'm like, wait a minute, what if I'm not around for the birth of my grandkids? What if I'm 1,100
Mhm.
miles away, I should say? That probably sounds a little better. But what if I'm not? So I know there's reoccurring issues, there reoccurring mistakes. They're the same ones. So I started writing down everything I want my kids to know, because I'll tell you, as a childbirth attorney, how my kids be ready, prepared for childbirth, completely different than the normal family. Well,
Mhm.
that wasn't until I wrote my book, but now my book is basically how I would prepare my kids. But
Mhm.
so I started to write everything down, and as I wrote it down and as everything came out, um, I just realized pretty quick that this is not only information that could help my kids have a healthy baby, but really families all over the world.
Oh, for sure. For
So,
sure.
and
That's
that's how
powerful.
thank you.
Yeah, and the fact that you used that moment, to fuel, like something can of course, the baby is fine, thank God the baby is fine, but you
Mhm.
also pulled something else out of the lessons, and we'll talk about the lessons that you talked about in the book, but you pulled a lesson, like, what if I'm not around. So let me write this down.
Mhm.
I have this knowledge for a reason because, of course, the knowledge that you shared with your sister ultimately, I would say, help to save the baby's life. So that's powerful.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy and
Yeah,
grateful that your is it your great niece or
great
nephew?
news.
Your
Yep,
great
and I
niece.
did then when I was on vacation last week, I was with her. It was
Oh,
awesome.
nice.
Yeah, her name's
Oh,
Amelia. She's so cute. So,
yeah. How old
and
is she now?
oh my goodness, she's 2, 2.5. So
Oh,
she's a March baby.
wow.
Yeah, she's a March baby, so she's 2.5.
So you
Oh,
wrote
wait.
that book almost like you got to work
You know, it's
right in the
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. God works in mysterious ways, and,
Wow.
I didn't understand it at first, but, March 17th, St. Patty's Day, it
Mhm.
happens. We had actually been in Florida, and we were actually living in Florida, so everybody from Michigan was coming down to Florida. It was spring
Mhm.
break, it was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna write a book," and yeah, it's for 2 weeks, nothing happens. We have a house our house is full of people.
Mhm.
I believe was it my daughter's senior year? I think so, yeah,
Mhm.
and, it was absolutely crazy, and then, Saturday morning, it was, like, 2 weeks later, it was April 2nd, it was, 11:20 AM.
Mhm.
I was running on a treadmill, and in the freakiest, weirdest accident, I backhanded while running up a hill insanely fast because I hit it on, like, on a huge incline. I backhanded the handle, smashed my hand and broke it. My right hand, actually. So
Okay.
so April 4th, it was my daughter's 18th birthday on April 4th. She was born
Yeah.
4/4/04. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, so, they I get it to urgent care, they X-ray it. They're like, "What did you just you sha" like, "What?" You have to get to a surgeon Monday morning. They're gonna have to do surgery, blah, blah. I go
Mhm.
see the surgeon because it's an emergent basis. And the surgeon's like, this is weird, but you broke it in such a way that if you actually don't move it for, a month and a half, you may not need surgery, but you really can't do anything. Like
Oh,
you can't do
wow.
laundry. So they casted it. They left my thumb and my pointer finger out, and I did try to do stuff around the house because 'cause I'm like, "Yeah, whatever."
Of course you did.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what we do.
Um, um, and it became apparent very quickly that no, I couldn't.
Oh,
So really
wow.
all I could do, so I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna write a book, so may as well start writing it." So
Mm.
as attorneys, we dictate.
Okay.
So I dictated, like, a big portion of my book, and then I'd have to correct it with my left hand. So it took a little bit longer, because you're
Wow.
correcting, dictating, correcting, dictating with, the wrong hand, because it was my right
Yeah.
hand that I broke. But no, that's so, I no work, no nothing. I wrote and I walked. That's all I could do. And so my whole life, again, like, it just stopped. And I'm like,
Wow.
and then once so I didn't tell you this, but, the first 3 months of writing the book, I actually cried because I had
Mm.
suppressed what I had seen
Mhm.
emotionally. I think as a mom, like, I still have kids or let me
Yeah,
tell you the worst, when I'm pregnant, I'm deposing a mom who lost her baby. It was very difficult.
that's a lot.
So I had suppressed, I think, a lot to get through it.
Mhm.
So I cried, and then I was very concerned. I could not stop crying while writing. I wrote the book. I would wake up at 3 AM and write.
Mhm.
And then after that 3 months, there was that clarity, that
Ooh.
I did have the knowledge that could help families. But yeah, no, I got he stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah. This book
And
needs to come out.
yep. And I remember, the owner of the gym called me, and it was that Monday, because again, it was my daughter's birthday. He's like, "I'm so sorry about your hand," and, I think he was worried about me suing him. And I'm like, "This happened for a reason. I don't know what it is right now, but
Mhm.
something good will come out of this, I promise." And
Mm.
he's like, kinda like, "Oh, like,
He's
oh, you're not
confused.
gonna sue me?" And I'd be like, "How would I sue you? It's my fault." So, But you're an attorney, you injure yourself on their premise,
Yeah.
some of us have a bad reputation. I wouldn't do that, I obviously didn't. But yeah, that's really, and then he actually, I gave him the book after it was published. I'm like, "Hey, remember that phone call?" I'm like, "This is what I
Yeah.
did." And he's a huge advocate of my book.
I
And he
love
read it, and his
that.
daughter's currently pregnant. And
Oh
yeah,
my
so he
gosh.
read the thing from front to back in like days. So it was amazing.
You told like three amazing stories in one.
Oh,
Like that was perfect. Oh my gosh. That's ah this again, like this book is needed. And that story was proof that this book is needed. So thank you for sharing that.
oh, no, but it's interesting. I don't talk about that. And then you're such a good host. You ask the right
Oh,
questions. Because usually I
thank
don't
you.
tell that story. I'm like, I always get into write it what's
Yeah.
in the book, but you're smart enough to be like, how did you do this? So fast or whatever. So
Yeah, that time period. I'm like, wait a minute, the baby is oh wow. You
yeah,
got to
it
work.
was
That's
so
awesome.
March. So I within 2 weeks was writing the book, like full blown writing the book because yep. And then it was published June 2023. We're in July 2024.
That
Yeah.
is encouraging, especially that's encouraging for all of us as moms, literally. And I'm going to get at the end of the episode, I want to talk more about, your process of writing the book and everything and balancing motherhood. We're going to get into that, but that I just want to put a pin in that because how encouraging it is that you did that. And you went
Thank
with
you.
it and you didn't stop. Like that is encouraging. So, wow.
Thank
I'm amazed.
you.
You're
I'm
superwoman.
telling you, if something like that happens, because I'll when I broke my hand, I was in such shock, like, that
Yeah.
first few hours. Like, everybody's like, "Are you
Mm.
okay?" And I knew I shattered my hand and,
Ooh,
or broke it, how I broke whatever, and, I just wouldn't talk or move, I just stared straight, and you're
yeah.
just like, because it was so shocking,
A
but
freak
then
accident.
it was just yep, that stopped me in my
Yeah.
tracks, but if that happens, everybody needs to be like, "Okay, is there a reason that I'm being taken out of the grind right now?" Because if it hits
Seriously.
you my whole life changed after that, like,
Oh
for the
my
good.
gosh. Yeah, because we
So
won't stop until God stops us. Like, we won't
mhm,
stop.
yeah,
So, whew,
so it's
oh my
important
God,
to,
that was
you
awesome.
know yeah, thank you.
I mean, of course, I'm not happy you hurt your hand, but, some great things came from it.
It's fine now.
Okay.
I'm missing a knuckle.
Oh,
This
wow.
knuckle's gone, but if you can see you have no knuckle,
Yeah.
right
Oh,
there.
but it still works.
Yep,
That is a
still works.
blessing.
In the end, it's totally
Yes.
fine. I would not know I broke it, in a day-to-day basis, so
Oh, wow. I'll be thinking about that all day. So thank you for sharing that.
well, thank you, Sheila. You asked the right questions.
Of
You're a great host.
course. Yes. Now birth trauma can be a scary subject.
Mhm.
Um, and because you are a childbirth lawyer, the type of work that you do you think, in your opinion, that your book could scare parents? Because I think it's important for uh, you to explain this so that people know why it's okay to
Yeah.
buy the book. Yeah.
So I learned pretty early on in my career, given what I've seen and done, when I talked to somebody who's expecting, initially I would, I had no filter and they would like turn me off because they were like,
Mhm.
"Oh my goodness, like you only deal with the bad." And so I learned pretty quickly, like, wait a minute, you gotta know how to talk to them and just be very careful and whatnot. And
Okay.
so I spent a lot of time focusing my book on it, not to make sure it was not scary.
Mhm.
But once it was done, I was done writing it. I gave it to 6 pregnant beta readers. So beta readers will read your book before it's published and answer
Mhm.
questions.
Okay.
And they varied from 20 to like 45, first baby, third baby, you name it.
Mhm.
And my first question to them, and again, I was very careful in writing the book, because the worst thing I could do is to write it in a scary way and then the information not get to the moms. That's what I was
Mhm.
terrified of, because I do
Yes.
know, like you've said, the book will help save babies, and
Mhm.
it will help families. So I was very cautious. But anyway, the first question to the beta readers, is this book scary? And across the board, they were like, absolutely not. This is great information. They felt very privileged that, oh my goodness, I got to read this during my pregnancy.
Yeah.
And then I got word, let's see, over Christmas, that I think my last beta reader finally had their baby. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's good.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I'm like, yay. Okay,
I
thank you. I'm like,
love
if something happens to one of my beta readers, I'm like, oh, this,
Yes.
no, they were all appreciative. They, and whatnot. So it was, yeah. So
That's
it is
amazing.
not scary. My book is more, for how to make sure, it goes right. Is the thing.
Mhm.
I may say things in there and people are like, why should I know this? Just trust me. And then I did try to
Yeah.
include, because I do get calls from labor and delivery and, people who are pregnant, people I don't even know,
Mhm.
asking me questions. I think it's chapter 6. Yeah, chapter 6. I got, just while writing that chapter, I got a like random call from, actually there were text messages initially. I put the text messages right into that chapter because I'm like, this is so relevant to this
Yeah.
chapter. And I'm getting them from labor and delivery. So
Oh, I
I
can't wait to
put
get to
them in
that
there.
chapter.
Yeah, so it's, and again, so I tried to include more of the good stuff, that when people
Yeah.
contact me and I may tell a story, but there's actually more to a story than, um, you know, than is,
Mhm.
it sounds like, oh, this is a great story, but you're actually learning a lot. And it
Yeah.
was my way to try to get sneak some other information that parents need to know in a happy story, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
That it's so informational and it's digestible and you really feel like you can use this information. Like even if you're not familiar with like terminologies and things like that, like you break it down in a way that is very helpful. So
good.
I would say based on what I have read so far, it is far from scary. It's just like thank God I have this information so that I'm ready. So I
Good.
agree.
Thank
I
you. That
agree.
means a
Yeah, of
lot.
course. So in chapter 1 of your book, you shared 13 lessons that you learned from childbirth cases over the years. I want to just read the 13 and then I have a few of them that I want to talk to you about today. Okay, so lesson number 1 is learning about labor and delivery. Lesson 2 is the delivery team. Lesson 3, the good doctor. Lesson 4, know your hospital. Lesson 5, have a labor and delivery plan. Lesson 6, have a baby advocate, if I could talk,
Mhm.
say it right. Lesson 7, know the types of fetal monitors. Lesson 8, know your baby's heart rate, know what your baby's heart rate means.
Mhm.
Lesson 9, understanding tests and interventions in labor. Lesson number 10, common facts and issues in legal baby cases. Lesson 11, safety in epidurals. Lesson 12, understanding C-sections. I had 3, so I really could have used that information. And
Yeah.
lesson 13, Pitocin is the most common fact in legal baby cases, which was
Mhm.
what stuck out to me the most. And all of your lessons are so important. Like, I don't think there's one that you can do without. They're definitely all important. But can you share what the most important thing parents need to know to deliver a baby? So, which lesson is the most, do you think would be the most important to learn and study about prior to labor and delivery if you had to choose?
I know, right? I'm like, "Oh,
I know, if you
okay,
had to
you're
choose.
making me choose."
I know.
I would do, there's like 3 probably, like, that are
Okay.
really, really important.
Yeah, let's go through them.
Understanding your delivery team. You have to
Mhm,
understand, in my baby cases, it's the delivery team that's responsible for bringing your baby safely into this world.
mhm.
It is their care that is at issue, analyzed more than any other aspect of the case. However, typically your delivery team consists of people who are scheduled to work that day. again, a reason you need to prepare and not just hope for the best going in and relying on strangers. Because, they may be going, who knows what they're going through? They may be going through a divorce. They may be off that day. I mean, think about it think about it, moms, like, yeah, especially with this podcast, because if you're listening to this podcast, we have off days,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. So understanding your delivery team is number one, and it definitely will help, you understand why it's important to get ready for childbirth.
Mhm.
And I'm going to shoot to number 9,
Okay.
understanding your baby's heart rate.
Mm.
I don't know what's up with the medical community, but they like to keep that to themselves. I'm out there going, no,
Mm.
screw that. I don't know if
No.
you're going to edit that, but anyway,
No,
but
it could stay.
I'm like, screw that. Here's the deal. Doctors have testified. I included the testimony in the book. Actually, I think the testimony is in chapter 2.
Mhm.
But basically, doctors have testified, Gina, the only way a baby can talk to me during labor is through their heart rate. So if you can understand your baby's heart rate, or your husband, your mom, whoever's there, your family or friends,
Mhm.
really will, it's like the baby can talk to you. And it's like the
Mhm.
baby, I can look at a baby's heart rate and tell you if baby is a rock star or baby is struggling. And
Mm.
it's very important, because you got to think about it. When there's moms in labor, there's 2 patients, mom and baby. Mom is like super easy. Everybody can see mom. Mom talks. Mom can describe things. Mom has facial expressions. If there's pain and so forth, they make
Mhm.
a diagnosis, a plan, much easier. Baby's inside mom. And during labor, that environment in the uterus can change, and it can change quick.
Mm.
So that's where baby is. So their heart rate, I'm not kidding you. It's the first thing I learned as a childbirth attorney. And if you've ever looked at a baby's heart rate, which is chapter 9, it can look a little intimidating at first. But listen,
Mhm.
an hour and a half, it took me about an hour and a half to get a good idea. And you don't have to know the ins and outs of the baby's heart rate. But
Okay.
also, another important thing is decisions that are made, or recommendations, I should say, recommendations that are made to mom
Mhm.
are, if there's a concern about the baby for some reason, it almost always starts with their heart rate.
Okay.
So again, this is going to be like, okay, streamline communication or whatnot. So it really just helps to have a good understanding, especially if you're undergoing something like a Pitocin induction, which is,
Mhm.
chapter 14. But the last lesson that is crazy important, it's why I wrote the book. This is information you will not find anywhere else, like
Mhm.
nowhere else.
Okay.
There's no childbirth attorney writing this stuff down. Chapter 11, the common facts and issues in a legal baby case. So we just talked about Pitocin. Pitocin is the number one fact in a legal or issue in a legal baby case.
Mhm.
Keep in mind the flip side of that, I do not have many cases that are natural, spontaneous vaginal births, skip the drugs. Again,
Mm.
very important. So if you're doing a Pitocin inductions, you have to understand that's when the complications and the mistakes typically occur. It
Yeah.
gives parents a heightened sense of awareness. It helps to activate their intuition, all of that stuff. But you don't know what you don't know, making
Yeah.
chapter 11 really important. But another one that almost ties in with the baby's heart rate
Mhm.
is, in almost all the cases, when there's a mistake or complication, it's after mom's water breaks. That is
Mm.
so if it doesn't break spontaneously, which, sometimes it does, great. But if it doesn't, and the doctor's like, hey, I recommend breaking your bag of water, that is a very, very important decision, because I like everything in the uterus where baby hangs out, with their lifeline, which is the umbilical cord and the placenta. That's, the leach on the attached to the uterus, getting the blood and the nutrients to baby.
Yeah.
Everything's surrounded by this fluid. But when that fluid comes out, it changes the baby's environment. Now,
Mhm.
when I identify, by the way, in chapter 11, all of these things, I solve every problem. I did write this book initially for my kids. So I can't
Yeah.
just tell the kids, Pitocin, careful. No,
Yeah.
this is how you have a safe Pitocin induction. Doctor wants to break your bag of water. This is what you ask. Is there a medical reason, or do you want to be home for dinner? I've heard both.
Mm.
Keeping that water intact as long as possible keeps the baby just in that normal environment, where the environment they've really been in. Once
Mhm.
the water drains out, then it becomes really important then to keep an eye on the baby's heart rate,
Yeah.
again, especially if you're undergoing a Pitocin induction, because that's a lot of times when they do wanna break your bag of water is during an induction. Um, and
Yep.
then yep, and, same like busy labor and delivery unit, is another common issue or fact. It's, you actually may have a pretty good delivery team.
Mhm.
But the problem is if it's labor and delivery, babies come when they wanna come. They can or a unit can become
That's
very,
true.
very busy, very, very fast.
Yeah.
In Michigan, May, June, and July, crazy busy. That's when
Wow.
everybody seems to, have their babies. So again, I go over what are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna have, something called a baby advocate. You have
Mhm.
second set of eyes on mom and babies, somebody working with the delivery team and so forth. Again, exactly what you said earlier in the podcast, how this is not only a book for moms, but dads, grandmas, aunts, uncle, whoever's there. If you have an understanding, then you can, again, you're that second set of eyes in case that delivery team is really busy that day.
Mhm.
Because, think about it and here we go. Think about it, moms. You're busy, you're super hectic, crazy busy, you're moving at the speed of light. That's when you tend to miss things. You don't mean
Yeah.
to, but when
Yeah.
you're spread thin like that, that's at least when I drop the ball.
And you're only one
So,
person.
I
You're
know,
only
right?
one
So just
person.
think about, depending on the dynamics of a certain hospital and labor and delivery unit,
Mhm.
and that just also appears when the mistakes and complications tend to occur. But anyway, there's 10 of those total. Those are 3.
Yeah.
Again, parents, if you understand this, again, it's you're like, okay, heightened sense of awareness. And then again, I'm like, here's my suggestions on how to make sure it doesn't happen to you. This is what you
Mhm.
need to know to keep your baby safe and you safe.
It's such good information because I think about when I had my first son, I was 21 years old. I have no clue. And I'm not gonna say that anybody around me had a clue
Mhm.
about what to look for and what happened a little bit about my story because it just connects with everything that you were talking about. They wanted to induce me. I was a couple days shy of my due date. He was born on June 11th. My due date was June 13th, so it was a few days out. Um, my blood pressure was high, and they wanted to make sure that he got out of there before anything bad happened. It's just a easy way of saying it. And
Yeah.
so I get to the hospital on a Friday. They put me on Pitocin.
Mm.
Um, I'm not dilating. I wanna say I was by the time Sunday came, I was dilated about 2 centimeters. It hadn't really changed. So, I'm still on Pitocin from Friday to Sunday.
Ugh.
Nothing's happening, and I'm like, "Okay, do I still should I just go home? Like, nothing's happening right now." They
Mhm.
ended up letting me go home. They took me off of the medication because I even at
Oh, wow.
21, I didn't feel comfortable with be
Wow.
having constantly having medication going from me to my baby.
Mhm.
As far as that's how I was thinking about it, for that long. So I go home, but when I go home, my contractions are I'm still the medication's still in my system. I'm sure of it. So I'm still having contractions consistently. So I go back in on Monday, which is the day he was born. I go back in, they plug me back up and everything. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, they put the Pitocin, they started giving it to me again
Mhm.
and they break my water because they're like, you need to it's been days, like you need to have this
Mhm.
baby pretty much. And after they break my water, they rush in and tell me the baby's heart rate has accelerated. We need to do an emergency C-section. Not what I was expecting. Because in
Wow.
my head, when I think about what my labor and delivery was going to be like, I didn't think I was going to be in constant pain for 3 to 4 days.
Mm.
I didn't think that I was going to have an emergency C-section. Everything that I didn't think would happen happened, except for the fact that he did come healthy and well. And I thank God for that. And after reading your book, the portion that I have read, I'm just thinking about how I didn't have a clue. My family didn't really have a
Mhm.
clue. No one could really ask the right questions because we didn't know what to ask. And where by the time they tell us an emergency C-section is needed, we're scared. And my husband is pacing
Mhm.
and he's thinking like like what now? So, thankfully he made it here, but these lessons that you're teaching are so important because so many things can happen like that. And you talk about often in your book about how you don't know what's going on the inside beyond the
Mhm.
heartbeat. And the heartbeat, if we would have known about the fact that we can, and this was 2007, so your
Yeah.
book was far from being
I
published
know,
at
right?
that time, but, to know that, because when you look at the whatever the thing is called where the heart see how
Yeah, the fetal monitor. See the heart rate above and then
yes.
the contractions are
See how
below.
much I still don't know. I need to get to that chapter, but, when you look at it, it's like I don't know this information. I'm just going to trust that the doctors know what they're talking about. And the more I think about it, the more I
Mhm.
read your book, like that's the last thing that we should do. Just hope that the doctors know what they're doing and that they're not going to have a bad day as were talking about. So this book is it's a classic. It's going to be something that all moms need to have. And I'm going to make sure that we have the link to the book in the show notes, so that if you know a mom who is having a baby soon, if you are the one who is having a baby, don't think that because you're a little further along, um, that it's too late. If you haven't had the baby yet, you get the book on Amazon, get it to you quickly, and just start reading it and learn because there's a wealth of knowledge in this book, and I really appreciate it. I can't stress that enough, especially because of the experience that I had. So
Mhm.
again, thank you.
Aw, thank you, and I'm glad everything turned out okay because 'cause you're definitely so that's a close call right there,
Mhm.
and when by the time they're saying emergency C-section, then obviously they're like, your baby could be in trouble or your baby is in trouble, and those are just the last words a mom wants to hear.
Oh God.
But and the reason or the way they knew that was the baby's heart rate. So, it
Mhm.
also again, if you have an understanding of that, what it is, that way if the delivery team does spring emergency C-section on you, it's gonna stem from the baby's heart rate. You're
Mhm.
gonna know exactly okay, what do you mean? What's wrong with baby's heart rate? And you're gonna know what that means though after you read chapter 9,
Yeah.
and so forth. So,
Wow.
it's a good important, but no, I'm glad everything's okay. You're going through everything, and I'm just like, well, I know the baby's healthy, so I know she has healthy kids, so we're good.
Yes.
But yeah, you're definitely, the sad thing in the case is, and I believe it's chapter 1, but these families are one decision or minutes from a healthy baby.
Seriously.
That's your close call. And so the fact that you landed on the right side of a close call, I mean, it's good, very good.
And I
So,
never thought about it like that. I mean, of course, I was grateful that everything worked out fine, but I didn't think about it that deeply because he was born and everything was fine.
mhm,
But of course, I would have thought about it that deeply if, God forbid, something did happen, and it wasn't a close call, as you call it. So I
mhm.
I didn't know, and I'm just wow. This information is very, very, very important. Um,
Thank
and in
you.
your book, you talk a lot about how important preparation is for labor and delivery.
Mhm.
Beyond the things that you have mentioned already, can you talk about why preparation is so important and just share a few key ways moms can prepare at the beginning of their pregnancy?
Yeah. So, I think I'll clarify too. So when I write down each lesson in chapter 1,
Mhm,
then each lesson is a
mhm.
subsequent chapter, just so your
Yes,
audience. Yeah.
yes,
So
yeah.
like, right. So lesson 1 is you got to get ready and prepare for childbirth.
Mhm,
And it really comes from that's a lesson from the families. And the lesson, so everyone understands, it's either a lesson from the delivery team, the medical experts, the families. That one is definitely the families. Because
mhm,
I think, it's a mentality we're all guilty of, but it's, bad things only happen to other people. And so many families roll up and they hope for the best. And I'll
mhm,
tell you, I have to talk to the families later after baby, and they know so much more in the aftermath of something going wrong. I
mhm,
know that if they would have known this information initially, maybe they never had to sit down again with somebody like me. So,
mhm,
but getting ready and preparing, that's chapter 2. And what I do in chapter 2 is I go through the things that I find important. So if I get a new case in and I'm like, okay, it's this good care or bad care, these are like the
mhm,
things that I rely on. So I know even I started off with a chapter, I mean, like the 2 patients, babies inside you. I think I go into
mhm,
fetal monitoring. But,
mhm,
when you may hear these words sometimes from people, but, baby, lack of oxygen or whatnot, gotta remember that baby gets their oxygen is like in the form of blood.
mhm,
So the umbilical cord is like their lifeline because that transfers the oxygen-rich blood to baby. But
mhm,
just like everything, it's a cord, it's like a hose. So, sometimes it's like, what did I say? I think in that chapter I said, it's, if it gets kinked or something, I mean, that just, that'll cut off the oxygen or whatever. But I'm just
yeah,
understanding that the umbilical cord is the lifeline.
mm,
The placenta is attached to the uterus. It's like a leech sucking the nutrients and blood out of mom and transferring all that great stuff to baby and understanding the
mhm,
importance of that and understanding that where your baby is, the baby's in the uterus and that nobody can assess baby and so forth. But no, and again, understanding, that the baby is housed, in the uterus, but then surrounded by fluid and understanding how important that fluid is, and stuff
mhm,
like that. But yeah, just key information that I don't think you can find. I've read the other pregnancy books, but they
mhm.
seem to touch on other things, probably
Yeah,
different, like, positions or something, whatnot. But yeah,
uh-huh.
these are just the different things, that, I go through in that chapter.
Yeah, the terminologies and how you break down what they
Mhm.
mean is so important because when you think about when doctors come in and they're saying all of the things and you're like, "I don't know what you're talking about," or
Mhm.
and this and even if you think you know what the umbilical cord is for or, why it's so important, but getting,
Yeah,
like, the true, like, real knowledge of exactly what it is and why it's important to your baby and why it's the, lifeline and all of those things, when you hear them say those certain things, it's like, okay, your ears are perked up, like, I know, like, based on what I read, I
yeah.
need something's happening here, so I need to be asking questions if necessary. So the
Mhm.
terminologies in itself, I think that was chapter
Chapter 2. Yeah, it's funny, I just looked in chapter 2, I'm like, "I'm missing what else was I gonna say
yeah.
about that?" But understanding contractions.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that you know what? Because everyone has to understand that, moms are lucky. Because 'cause I'll tell you,
Mhm,
contractions suck for mom and baby. Mom
mhm,
is lucky, mom can get an epidural, she doesn't feel the contractions anymore. But like I
mhm,
just said, contractions also suck for baby. But listen, no one freak out. Babies are made to handle contractions, so
mhm.
that's okay. But what
Yeah.
happens is during a contraction, so again, like we talked about, everything's housed in mom's uterus,
Mhm,
and then during contraction, the uterus contracts down on baby, your baby's lifeline, the placenta, and when that
mhm,
happens, then that will, like, stop the blood flow or stop the oxygen flow to baby.
mhm,
Again, babies are meant to handle contraction, that's fine. But that's where Pitocin becomes kind of an issue because Pitocin, those are not spontaneous natural contractions. Those are artificial contractions. And
Mhm.
when Pitocin goes up too fast, too high, and that's too
Mm.
many contractions on baby, that
Mm.
again becomes very important information for families to understand.
Oh my
Again,
god.
something that I cover in chapter 2. But yeah, no, I was finishing that answer and I'm like, why did I
Yeah.
miss out the contractions? But understanding again how that all works together. And again, the baby's heart rate, there's
Mhm.
2 graphs. The bottom graph is mom's contractions. So you can
Okay.
watch, so let's say mom's on an epidural, that's fine. Most moms get epidural.
Mhm.
But then it becomes very important to kind of watch those contractions. Make sure they're not contracting too much. Because again, every time there's a contraction, it's very similar to baby goes underwater during the contraction. So
Mhm.
as the contraction climbs up, it's like baby's underwater, and then the contraction goes down, and the baby's like, "Ah, okay, I can breathe again." Again,
Yeah.
totally normal. But if you're undergoing a pit induction where the contractions are not natural, again, keeping an eye on that heart rate becomes really important.
Oh my
Again,
god.
just stuff that's covered, all that's covered in my book.
Yeah, that is so good. Like, good information to have, just contractions in itself, like, oh my gosh, like, get the book, seriously. And even if like, if you're planning to have a baby and you're not pregnant yet, it's still a good book to have, and you'll be ahead of the game, so, just saying.
Well, and remember, I mean, this is like information that I know. This is how I would prepare my kids. But I also
Yeah.
now, it's like I get a lot of like I said, I get calls from labor and delivery, but really everything I know is in the book. So let's say you
Mhm.
have a family friend, you read my book and you're like, whoa. And now, you're almost like the expert on it. And there's
Yeah.
actually people, I was on a podcast and she's like creating a course based on my book. I'm like, "Ugh, maybe I should create the course." But anyway,
Oh, wow, you
I
should.
know, right? In my spare time after my podcast and my book and I still work
Yes,
and
oh
my
my
kids and my
god.
family. I know I'm trying. Um,
You're
but no,
doing great.
like they were creating, and then there's been other people who do have childbirth courses who are using my book to help
Mhm.
prepare or put that information in their course to help families.
Wow, that's awesome. It's like it's just a wealth of knowledge, and I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Sheila.
And of course, and there are just so many, like we talked about the books, and I believe your book is the first of its kind. I think I'm right. Am I right? I feel
You
like I'm
are
right. Okay.
100% right. I get a lot of times people are like, "Why is this information just surfacing?" And
Yes.
I'm literally like, "I just don't think a childbirth attorney ever thought to write a book." So,
And
I
you
just
are
don't.
you are really breaking all of the stereotypes that people have of attorneys.
Yeah.
You are the
Well,
nicest
thank
attorney
you.
I have ever talked to, first of all. Well,
Oh, Sheila, I love you. We have such a connection. I knew it right when we logged on that I'm just
you
gonna love you.
seriously are, and the fact that you are so willing and, like, freely and, like, giving all of this information with such love and care, like, it's amazing.
No,
And,
thank you.
but why do you believe that this is the first time? Do you have an idea of why you're the first to do this type of book?
Oh, yeah, so being an author and writing books, like, it's a fraction of what I make as an attorney. My income comes from attorney world. Like,
Yeah,
even today, I'm on the podcast today. I mean, we're going on an hour. I don't get paid for this.
yeah.
But for
Well, thank
me,
you.
it's more I know. Oh, I'll send you an invoice, Sheila. No, I mean, but doing this doesn't really pay the bills, but it's the right thing to do. In the
Yeah.
end, the end, yeah, did I get the information out there that can help families and save babies? I did everything possible.
Mhm.
But I can't sit back anymore. But I know that's a big reason is
Yeah.
we make way more money litigating these cases in the aftermath of something going wrong. We don't,
Mhm.
we don't
Mhm.
really make anything. Yeah, books. I mean, books. I mean, you do okay, but again,
Yeah.
nothing like an attorney world. And again, I think too for me, I was in this grind, and you're just it's like tunnel vision. right?
Mhm.
I got my crazy family, my crazy life. I'm working, I'm head down, I'm trying,
Yeah.
it's a hard world out there. I'm trying my best. And to be taken out of that world like I was,
Mhm.
and I had to sit and listen to my sister cry for 20 minutes, lost
Mm.
my hand 2 weeks later. I just think that that was just my path. And I'll tell you, I like doing this way more than, eventually after we finish the podcast, I have to go back to work.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, I don't and I
Yeah.
gotta do stuff like that, and
Mm.
that's fine. I mean, again, it pays the bills and whatnot, but still, it's this is my jam right here.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. And it came from your heart too. And I think that that's what makes it unique. That's what
Yes,
makes it unique.
definitely, 100%.
Yeah. So, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're an attorney, you're an author, you're a podcaster. You're all the things. How did you balance writing a new book, uh, doing all of the things that you do?
Yeah, so basically, my schedule had to change, and I had to axe the personal life. Like friends and family are, I would say, not so much family, but well, maybe not my immediate family, but other
Mhm,
family. So I had changed my schedule up, and I had to do
mhm.
that pretty quick. Once I got back, I had to go back to work, and my hand was getting better, and my
Yeah.
cast came off. I didn't have the luxury of sitting and writing, whatnot. I had been getting up early just because my brain is so fresh in the morning.
Mhm.
But I go to bed at 7 p.m.
Oh, wow.
and I get up at 3. And now
Okay.
okay, this sounds crazy, but I've loved the schedule so much. I've tried to keep it. Now this summer has been a little bit harder, but
Yeah.
no, my alarm, right, let's see if it comes on. No, it's too early, but no, 3:30. My alarm set right now for 3:30. So this morning went off at
Wow.
3:30. Um, but yeah, so basically I had to write the book in like the middle of the night.
Mm, mm.
It's when I'm so fresh in the morning because you're just critically thinking because
Yeah.
this book was a creation. It wasn't like, there's so many self-help books out there that you can read and maybe go off some other self-help. No, this was a creation from my brain, from all the cases, again, never been done before. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of critical thinking. So 3
Yeah.
a.m., fresh brain, and then I'd go as long as I could. Usually by 9, I was pretty cashed.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you had to set boundaries, like, you had your schedule, you had all of the things, so it
Mhm.
just shows you that it's possible, like, you can do all of the you could do things that are important to you when you're a mom and, still be a good mom and get it done. I'm actually back in school, so hearing like, you're inspiring me so much, like, just seeing
Thank
you do all of the things, is very inspiring, so kudos to you, that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's still I'm not gonna sugarcoat the kids though. Because I still have been getting up, still doing podcasts, talking about the
Mhm.
book, all the stuff I love to do,
Yeah.
really instead of writing. But then I'll get up early and work so I can, again, do a podcast like this.
Yes.
But no, in May, friends and family had like complete interventions with me, like, Gina, you gotta stop working so much. And,
Yeah.
you're out there doing, what you can. But yeah, hence why another reason why I went camp after the intervention, I'm like, that's fine. I'll take Liam camping for a week,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
trying to enjoy myself. Of course, look where I've landed, right? I'm drowning in everything I have to do. But again, you've made my day though. I'll tell you, Sheila, being on your podcast and listening to you and all the wonderful things that you've said about my book and me
Mm.
means so much to me. And it's stuff like
Oh.
this that really keeps me going. So again, I just can't. I've just loved being on here, and you're so awesome.
Oh, you too, Gina. I appreciate you coming on. The knowledge and wisdom that you have shared with us is just golden, and my hope is that it helps every single mom to be or a relative that can help the
Mhm.
mom to be. So I'll definitely share the link to your book, to Gina's book, A Parent's Guide to a Safer Childbirth, in my show notes. And I'll also leave the link to Gina's podcast, the Childbirth Attorney Podcast. She is a
Oh,
podcaster now.
yes.
And I listened to one episode and I enjoyed it. So congratulations on your new podcast. So if you
Oh.
are interested in everything that Gina has been saying here on the podcast, you will definitely, I'm sorry, yeah, here on my podcast about the book, you will definitely love to listen to her podcast. And where can everyone find you on social media, or anything that you want to share for anyone that wants to connect with you?
Oh, thanks. My favorite is, my favorite social media, is Instagram at Gina Mundy. Facebook is, Gina Mundy, author,
Okay.
and I don't know, TikTok is probably Gina Mundy at something. I'm not I sometimes I post on Tik I post like 3 things on TikTok.
Me too.
I think my daughter follows me, that's about it. So, yeah, I know, right? Well,
I love it.
listen, it's interesting, before I published my book, I was just, again, I was never on social media and all
Mhm.
that, but, I've enjoyed Instagram for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, again, different life. But yeah,
Hmm.
no, Instagram.
Okay.
So,
Cool. I'll make
and then
sure.
the best Oh,
Uh-huh.
sorry, and then
No,
also,
go ahead.
just so your audience knows too, the best way to always find me, what I'm doing, podcast information, anything I'm putting out there on how to have a healthy baby. I do wanna do one more book, and all
Cool.
that stuff is always Gina Mundy, GinaMundy.com.
Okay, awesome. I'll definitely leave all of those in the show notes. Thank you again for your time, and coming on to the podcast. And I hope that you have an amazing day, rest of your day. And I will talk to you guys next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks, Sheila.
Bye.